welcome back to one of these Blitz videos. Today I'm facing a 3000 ELO bullet player online, and we are off. And right from the get-go, he plays the Nimzo Larsen opening, b3, bishop b2. I defend with my knight, and now he goes for this e3, preparing to get his bishop out. I take the center, and after the pin, I go bishop d6, f4, and now I play this nice queen h4 check, g3 creation, and now back to e7. I am still in book in this opening, and my opponent thought he surprised me from the get-go, but he did not. Bishop e6 defending. Now knight f3. So my opponent is just putting pressure on my big black center here and castling short. And now I have a choice to make. Do I castle long or short for me? So first I attack this bishop, asking it a question. My opponent's got to adjust his rook there. Ilya's a good player. He's a national master, and he's almost 2200 national rating and 2200 FIDE almost. So he makes the decision to take with check. I take back. My development now is certain. I am not going to castle long because my ruined pawn chain would make my king very weak. So I'm going to castle short, which means I need to develop this knight. So my knight is probably going to go to h6 and then castle short for now. So queen e2 is played. And now this allows bishop g4, but I missed it and I played knight h6 instead, taking up some valuable squares here. And also I'm preparing castles now. Ilya knows that if he lets me with this beautiful center, he will pay heavily. And now Ilya goes for the center d4, and e4 push immediately strikes the knight, which moves to the side of the board, and now I have an overwhelming advantage. But it is unrealized. It is not a material advantage, it is simply a spatial and activity-based advantage. These are especially hard to convert in the game of chess. So this Blitz tournament, unlike many other, is 2 double rounds. So I'll be playing Ilya once with the black pieces and once with the white pieces. This is the regional Blitz championship. It happens once a year in 2025, and I'm having a pretty good tournament so far. Bishop h3 attacking this rook. The knight comes to block, pretty passive, and now the engine gives +3 here for me. Knight in, attacking the queen. The queen moves. And now we have to find a plan to attack this king. And I go for h5. I am not castling short, not castling long. Plot twist, I am simply going to be attacking the king. And my opponent tries to trade pieces. When you're getting attacked, you should trade your opponent's attacking pieces. And now I go for f5, which was a little slow. I should have gone for g5 in hopes of h4 next. Ilya follows through with his plan and goes knight to f2, proposing a trade of knights, which I do acclaim to. And now I have to find a way to attack, but this g5 I didn't like because of takes and opening up the semi-file for the rook. So instead I go bishop g4, striking the queen, and now h4, planning to sacrifice in exchange. I'm opening the h-line, and after knight takes here, rook takes h4, pawn takes, queen takes h4, and now I have a true attack on a weakened king. The rook goes to g2. So this move, bishop h3, doesn't work because of queen f2, which I realized during the move. I was like, it doesn't work. So instead I go king f7, defending this pawn. Queen f2, proposing a queen trade. Obviously, when you're down material, which is the case for me here, you do not want to trade queens. So I'm just figuring out which square for my queen is best. And I go to h5 to trigger extra power on this diagonal. Ilya comes up with a very nice plan here. He plays pawn to a4. Very sneaky. Try to find out why he's playing pawn to a4 here. I'm trying to build an attack, so I go bishop h3, and this is a miss because I'm allowing rook g5 attacking my queen. My queen must move, and now Ilya can play his plan, which is bishop a3, which I missed. And this is the idea of pawn a4. Ilya now forces the trade of bishops, and back in this position, after a4, I needed to play bishop e7 to meet bishop a3 with bishop h4, maneuvering my bishop into an attacking position. And now I know I'm in trouble, because after bishop a3, this bishop is forced to trade either by taking or by getting taken on the next move. So instead, I discoordinate the rooks, and I use this loose piece to attack it with queen d6, trying to hop on the queen side of the board. The rook goes back, and now I go rook h8, super active move, taking up the semi-open file. Queen g3, bishop back. Again, I need to keep these queens on the board. Pawn to c3, my opponent wants to keep the position closed, solid, and I attack the queen first. And the chief organizer is now blocking a little bit of me. Queen back to f2. I knew it instantly when it happened and politely said, "Sir, you're covering the camera." And so now I have to open up. So I play pawn to c5. My goal here is to open up the structure to create weaknesses. Rook e1, queen to b6, attacking the stem of the pawn structure takes, and now I take the b3 pawn to weaken all of these all at once. Queen to d2 defense, and now this is an equal position, so I've recovered a lot of my wounds. Queen c2, queen c4, queen d4. And now the drawing option is to trade here and play a5. I play g6. Now this forces my opponent to take, and now my opponent is better because of the open file here. King g2, I try to grasp this open file, but he's there first. Rook d8, rook b7, and now I'm pressing down against the clock. My opponent has like 10 seconds at this point. Rook d7, h3 attacking my bishop, bishop check, king f1, check. I try to force a perpetual. My opponent takes the extra time by repeating once more and goes to g3 heaven with king g3. And here I am pretty much lost as the black pieces. I have to go back, defend my pawn. My opponent puts pressure on my rook. I have to keep defending this pawn, and now king back to f2. Bishop d1 attacking this weak pawn here. The rook comes back to defend. And now bishop e3 defending my pawn solidly. And now my opponent's counterattacking with h5 on the king side. I play a5, rook back, takes. Rook a6 attacking my bishop, and now rook defends, and now h5. Really nice move. This is the converting move for black, winning a pawn at once. Check on my king. King moves, and now rook takes pawn. And this position is as good as over, and I know how much I just missed this game 1 out of 2. King d6. Now I'm going to just try to play solid. He has 5 seconds on the clock, so practically you have chances of winning if your opponent is met with a complicated position and overthinks. So check, bishop d5. My bishop is now pinned, but it's very solidly placed. King g4. Now I defend my bishop with c6 so my king can emerge out of there. Rook a8. Rook f7, check. I go back to f6, check. King g7, check. King h7. And now my king is locked in a mating net. King g5. The mate is near. Mate in 15, 13, says Stockfish. I go rook a7, rook b8. And now I go back to check the king, and he checks me. King h8. Check. King g8. King f6. Mate is on the board. I don't see what moves I have. Rook a8. Rook to h7, threatening mate. Check. Bishop g8, and now rook g6, and my opponent is winning my bishop and my rook. I have to resign. Game 1 is sealed in the bag. Let's move on to game 2. For game 2, we have to switch sides because the arbiter insisted that the clocks are on the left of the opponent. I tried to get them so that we can see them in the video, but he insisted with no. Pretty disappointing. So anyways, e4, e5, game 2 underway, knight f3. You always have a chance to come back in these ones. So my opponent plays the Petrov, I take, and now d6, knight takes, and I wanted to try a line, which I've never tried before. Knight takes, and now d takes. My opponent immediately is surprised with that face he just made. Knight c6, and now I develop my pieces. Bishop d3 is not the move here, but okay, I tried. Bishop e7, bishop f4. I don't know theory here, I just know that you can castle long and have some great attacking chances. So I kick the bishop once, the bishop goes back, and now I go queen e2, preparing to castle long and have a rook directed at this queen here. My opponent thinks for a while, very good play by the bishop here. The bishop now is going to be a good defender of the king, and castle short is what we see. And now I castle long. My opponent goes rook e8, preparing some discoveries on my queen. And my next move here is very, very ambitious. I basically completely ignore this threat and go bishop c4, just aiming at a better bishop. This allows bishop f6, which is hard to see why it's such a good move. Obviously, it attacks my queen, but it doesn't win any material. So my opponent instead gives the bishop pair. I play queen takes f3, and now line up a delicious bishop takes f7 threat. My opponent plays king h8, which is a trick move. He basically wants something like this to happen, and he's a trickster. He wants like something like this to win my queen. I don't fall for it. I play king b1 instead, and now he has to meet this very big weakness with a very passive defensive move and goes rook f8. g4, I'm attacking with all my pieces, bring all the pieces to the party. Threatening h4, my opponent goes bishop h4, and now I have to find a way to get this bishop completely disconnected from this queen on d8. So I go rook to g1. My threat here is to play g5 and trapping this bishop when I can follow up with queen h5 or rook g4. So my opponent goes h6, and now I go g5 anyways, which is a curious thing that he missed anyways. Now this is really threatened big time, and it's not like black can take here twice or three times because it opens the h-file on this king for like a queen h5, and my bishop is already a very sound attacking piece. So my opponent takes a think and definitely knows that he's in danger here. Very important to mention here that Ilya is like 15 years old and is already such a prominent player. So big ups to him for putting up such fights as such a young kid with huge aspirations. So bishop takes now, and here I'm just figuring out which piece I should take with. Now I already sacked an exchange last game, and that didn't pan out too well, so I was definitely thinking twice. And here in this position, you should just take with the bishop. It's absolutely the same thing. What I wanted here is takes, queen check, and then I pick this up, or I drop the bishop down to threaten checkmate next. So I sack my rook. Brilliant move, says chess.com. We'll add a little brilliant emote here, and my opponent is thinking a long time. Pawn takes, queen h5. So he actually says, you know what? Take the bishop. I don't want to get checkmated. And now my rook is attacked, but I'm scared of rook g1 and then g5, winning back this bishop, because my queen is not defended, and so I can't move this bishop out of this pin. So what do I do here? Do I just keep the rook there and play h4? Takes, h takes? The engine says rook b5, which I found kind of strange. I played rook back to g1, just dropping down the rook. And now g5 is the best move, but still losing because I have rook g4 apparently. But on g5, I was planning on just sacrificing my rook back and opening up this h-file for queen h5 check. But my opponent plays rook b8. Too slow of a move in my opinion, trying to get some counterplay with b5. So I go queen g3, lining up my queen and rook on a battery to threaten this g7 square long term. b5, bishop d5, attacking this knight. It's hard to find a valuable square for the knight. He drops the knight back to e7. And now I have to find a nice square for the bishop. I simply go bishop e4, containing this knight fully with a nice scope for the bishop. So b4, he's threatening to open up this b-file, and I immediately reject this with c4 myself. a5 supporting the pawn, but this is too slow of an attack. I'm already threatening bishop d4, which is deadly on this queen and pawn. My opponent thinks for a while here. He knows that if he prevents with c5, I can go rook takes d6, and now this is completely killer. So after quite a long think here, after the games, Ilya praised how fast I was, which was somehow a huge compliment because he's such a prominent bullet player. So coming from the 126th best bullet player on the planet, him saying that to me really meant a lot. And now he plays b3, trying to open up his rook on this b2 pawn. I immediately go with bishop d4, challenging the queen's presence on this diagonal. And now I'm threatening some very nice things on g7. He goes with knight f5. So the best here is actually bishop takes, knight takes, and then just bishop back to c3. And the g7 pawn falls and I win. But I don't see that and instead miss check. I thought I had mate in 1 here, believe it or not. But after king a1, it's still completely winning, of course, because my extra piece is so strong. Rook g8 to defend. Now I go queen h4, threatening checkmate. King h7. Or rather, I was threatening a pawn because I think this. But at the time, I thought I was threatening checkmate, so I think that counts. And now I just have to add pressure on the weaknesses. So I go rook g4, queen c2 attacking, and then rook g1, assuring myself that this bishop is still rock solid in defending that b2 square. Pawn to g5. Now I'm looking for mates. I'm looking at those queen h5s. I'm looking at those rook takes. Rook takes doesn't work because if I take twice, I lose to checkmate in 1 move. So I play the very calm queen h5. Mind you, I have a minute up on the clock here where Ilya is already down to 20 seconds. And now I sacrifice my rook. Another brilliant move. If the rook takes, I have queen takes f7 with mate in 2. So my opponent chases my bishop with c5. And no way I'm giving up mate in 1. So bishop c3, a4 is played. My opponent is racing this pawn down the board, but it's too little, too late. I'm looking for checkmates. Queen takes was the move I really wanted to play, but it doesn't work. Rook takes, pawn takes, and now I have to move the queen. Queen d5, threatening checkmate in 1. Black somehow has to defend this threat, and my opponent goes for queen f5, but this instantly loses to queen takes, pawn takes, and rook g7 check. My opponent realizes that the king goes back, and I go rook b7, discovered check on this king, winning this rook, and winning the entire game. And that's how I beat a 3000 ELO chess player on chess.com. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time